In today's fast-paced world, your business deserves banking solutions that are as dynamic and cost-effective as you are. Solutions like free business checking from LGE Community Credit Union, free online and mobile banking, no minimum balance required, plus no maintenance fees and dividends on your balance. At LGE, we're a smarter way to bank. See what's possible for your business at lgeccu.org. No monthly maintenance fees. Other service fees such as NSF, overdraft, wire, and stop payment fees still apply. Not all businesses will qualify. Membership eligibility and base savings account that keeps a $5 minimum balance required.
Unless you've been living under a rock, you have undoubtedly felt the buzz around AI and how it's going to revolutionize the world, but also steal your jobs and eventually rise up against carbon-based creators like Skynet. I'm not sure all of that is true, but I am sure that's a powerful tool to help marketers plan, create, and publish content while removing redundant tasks. I'm sure of that because of this conversation with Fank Lazzaro, who speaks all over the country on this topic. If you're ready to use AI to turbocharge your marketing, this is the episode for you. All that and more on today's episode of The Marketing Madmen.
They say marketing is a madman's game. So now we turn it over to the Marketing Madman with Nick Constantino and Trip Job.
Happy Saturday. Welcome to the Marketing Madmen. Nick Constantino and Trip Job here live from the Battery, and we're getting closer and closer to happy hour. We're going to have to start
I like the 4 p.m. hour, man. I like the 4 p.m. hour. I think it suits us better. I think any hour you're more likely to have a cocktail in your hand to listen to this stuff, because let's be honest, marketing is just nuts. I mean, it's a soft science at the least, so you might as well have a drink in your hand. We're trying to decipher all this stuff.
I was with a good buddy of mine who's the CEO of the American Ad Federation, and he reminded me, I had forgotten about it, but a book. He said, yeah, you got to read it. It's the Death of Common Sense in America. And, you know, it's
so when that happened, 1777?
Well.
What happened? Is that when Common Sense died?
The book's now 10 years old, but,
okay.
You know, it's one of those that, I mean, it so much about what we talk about is common sense, which will make today very interesting.
Yes.
Because we have AI expert and Vice President of Marketing from Piedmont Bank, Fank Lazzaro, joining us. So welcome, Frank.
Welcome. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point, like the common sense of it. There's no common sense here, right? You're taking common sense out of this. You're making the common machine that can decipher and use a lot of this common sense. We talked about it a bunch in the show. Our conversation revolves around before you get crazy in AI, make sure you have good inputs, because all AI is doing is processing and putting outputs. So we tend to be, that's our line of thinking is before, and it's usually, you guys take a step back. You're thinking about this wrong. Do you fundamentally have strong business practices? Do you know your marketing goals? Do you have good inputs that this can process to make outputs? So I think that's a good segue. Frank, tell us a little bit. It seems like AI has come out of nowhere, even though it hasn't. Give us that. Let's abbreviate the past 2 years to how we got to now, and then I really want to set this up as a show for listeners, for small businesses, of how they can use some of these skills practically. So set the stage to how we got to here, and then I think we'll have the conversation of how this fundamentally translates to marketing.
Oh, absolutely. So I think if you take a step back, there's no button that you can press that AI is going to automatically do something magical for you. It goes back to your point about the inputs.
Yeah.
If you look at kind of where this started, we've been using AI for decades. We just haven't been calling it AI.
Sure.
So think about using Microsoft Word as you're typing. It's checking your spelling.
Sure.
It's using a database. It's looking at the database and it's telling you, yep, you spelled that word wrong.
Sure.
You spelled that word right. It's a dumb AI, but it's a fundamental what AI is.
Yeah, I think also it's like a video game too, right?
Well, it's a great point, though. I mean,
in video games, the AI from the Nintendo days, where the guys in Zelda would just go and set patterns.
Yeah.
This is now where they're shooting back at you. That is artificial intelligence. That's learning techniques. That is pretty advanced actual form when you think about it.
Absolutely. And so what's changed in the last couple years is the fact that now it's interactive, meaning that it's not just looking at a small database like a dictionary. It is really turning around and you're able to ask it questions back and it can respond back, and it's more conversational, which really allows the AI to kind of be more productive or more efficient in helping you kind of do things. And so you see the evolution, and honestly, I would say within the last 12 months, start maybe like late spring around the same exact time, ChatGPT exploded. Right. It became commercialized where everyone was able to use it, and now everyone's going nuts.
Democratized.
Right. But I also think, too, that the hype around AI has far exceeded its capabilities.
Yeah.
95% of what you hear about AI doesn't really exist.
But the hype, it was almost built that way. It's a large language learning, so it's supposed to get a bigger set, and as the set gets bigger and it learns more, it gets, in theory, smarter. I also think the dystopian view of the world and movies have made people think the world, it's like, guys, you're so far away from that. This thing is not even that smart yet. Calm down.
Absolutely. So I think if you go back to your point that you started this whole conversation with, is the inputs matter. So as a human being, you have to be able to put inputs into it in order to get the outputs out. There's no button that you press that you magically get content or marketing or something. We're going to get there eventually.
And I think you have to define what it is. And that's kind of where I was going. I go back, 25 years when I was, marketing in the paper and printing industry, and people said, "Oh, we got to be digital. We got to be digital printing." And I'm like, define what you mean by digital printing, because it already exists.
Yeah.
But depend on what it is. And then the same thing happened another 5-10 years later about, we got to be in digital marketing. Okay. Just tell me what your definition is, because it already exists, but how broad are you? How extensive? Back to some of your examples. And I think it's the same thing with AI. It's existed for a long time, but what's your definition? And is it just, something that's taking a process and making it simpler, or is it something that's actively thinking and creating maybe new processes? And I think you have to define.
That's the good point. I think, and what we are getting close to is AI to make AI, because every company needs it. Like in my world, my AI would be, this show is being recorded, it automatically transcribes, it automatically makes shorts, and it automatically posts to my social media handles for me. And it's there, but it is not exact yet. Even Hootsuite, when it auto posts, doesn't speak the same language because TikTok and Instagram don't want to. So that's my AI. If we could find something and I can make AI that can make that for me, and I'm not saying it doesn't exist, I'm saying it is above my head to program it to understand. That is the AI. When you can make systems, that's the day I think will be really beneficial.
Yeah. So I think the misconception that a lot of people have about AI is that it's a replacement for people or processes.
Yeah.
In the
reality,
reality,
so is the internet, so is the assembly line, so is agriculture.
And I use that example all the time, and it's not a replacement. It's going to augment your capabilities, supplement your capabilities. You think about the blacksmiths back in the day. When the car came out, it was doom and gloom. What am I going to do? Yeah. Well, they just become mechanics.
Yeah.
You think about architects. When AutoCAD came out, architects didn't go away. The drafting table went away. So everything has evolved. Even when I was younger and like when internet was first coming out, internet's going to steal everyone's job. No, it didn't. It just made your job easier. AI is exactly the same way. You're always going to have that human element. You're always going to have creativity, because the AI is not going to be able to do it without you.
And people will be able to absorb it and faster and be better at it than other people, which will always mean there will be a cream rises to the crop, just like everything. It's not, we've gone away from it being the biggest and the strongest of the most effective to the people that are absorb and be the brightest of the most effective.
Right. Yes. I think, Frank, it sounds like you've been on the cocktail circuit kind of like I have the spring. It's like one place or the other. And for me, it's like, hey, if I can use AI to help with my research and take that time I would have to put, so then I can use it to think about what I'm going to present and think about the messaging and all that makes me more efficient.
Oh, absolutely. So it's interesting. I when I teach using AI for marketers, typically what I tell them is that it's not you just ask it a question and it produces social media content for you. Typically, you have to feed it information. This is my writing style. This is samples of things that I've done.
This is the emotion I'm trying to elicit. That's the new thing, right?
Absolutely.
The emotional
and there's no emotion. Like if you just generically ask the AI a question, it comes out very generic. Yeah. You have to give it all this context. And sometimes, they call that prompt priming or they call that prompt engineering.
That's why those prompt writers are so in demand
absolutely.
Right now. That's the position right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Prompt engineers, right?
So when you think about if you're a marketer and I use this for myself and it's an efficiency play. I have built a custom MyGPT through ChatGPT that has everything that I've ever written, all my books, all my content. So it knows my writing style. So when I ask it to create a social media post, it's using that information that I spent. Right. So it's not 2 seconds and it's producing something. I've spent hours training this thing to produce something that's 70% close to what I would write, spending less time editing, and then all I'm doing is posting. Right. So for me, it's a huge efficiency play.
But that's those inputs. If you don't have the inputs to train it, right, you can't just sit there and decide to start talking to it, and it's going to learn from you that way. You have thousands of paragraphs and words and thoughts.
I've never done any blogs in my life. Now I want to become a blog expert, right?
Right.
That's the problem.
And they ask it, say, so write me a blog post. And then the blog post comes out very bland, very dry, and it's like, well, this is no good. Well, you didn't spend all the time on the front end to kind of give it the information to make it better. It's never going to be 100%.
Yeah.
If you could get something that's usable to 70% or 80%, and you're only spending 20% of your time editing, how much time did you save?
That's easy math.
Easy math.
I have a question for you. It's going to be an interesting question. So we had the benefit. We had a company that helped us transcribe all of our old episodes, and we got all these summaries, and it was a really cool experiment. Is AI meant to be flattering? Because what it came back with was, we are the best podcasters on earth. This is the most interesting stuff I've ever heard. And I was blushing a little bit. I was like, my goodness, AI, you have completely got me. I'm excited. Is it meant to find only the good stuff? Talk a little bit about just how it gains context. Because is it going to tell you, man, you suck, you should not do this? Give a little bit of that, because it was a great example for us of like, wow, maybe we are good at this.
So what you'll find with AI in and of itself, it loves adjectives. And adjectives that normal human beings do not use. Right? There's a big joke that's been going around about that uses the word dwelve. If you ever see anyone post anything on the internet that uses the word dwelve, it was probably created by AI. So that's kind of funny. But yes, you have to think about this, that the AI, particularly like a ChatGPT, it's designed to make you happy, right? It's designed. It's a very, very subservient puppy, to where it just wants to be with you, and so. But there's a downside to that. So there was a case that happened out in California where an attorney kept pressing the AI to say, "I need a case to support this lawsuit."
So it gave him a fake case,
and he just kept pressing it and pressing it and pressing it, and then eventually said, "Well, I'm going to make you happy," and it made something up, and then he filed it with the court and got in trouble. So yeah, it is designed to be flattering. It is designed to do that. But you can kind of, if you know what you're doing, you can kind of tell it not to do those things. Like, I need you, I love to use the word Spartan. Use Spartan language. Be very concise. And so what you'll find is that when you ask it to do these things, it'll tone it down. So one recommendation would be it came back with this big flattering thing, and say, okay, now create something that's not flattering.
Yeah.
And you'll be
where could I be better?
Where could I be better? And then it'll come back and critique you.
Compare me, find the #1 podcast. Compare me to this group of thing that we know is the best already. Yeah, that's a good point.
And so the other thing too, a lot of people, it is a conversation. So you have to tell it when it's right and wrong. So you're not being mean to it. It doesn't have feelings. But if you say, hey, listen.
It's feedback. It's direction.
I did not like the way you wrote that paragraph. Can you do it this way instead?
Yeah.
And it'll be like, oh, absolutely. And it'll do that.
It's like the old interview question. Tell me something negative about yourself. And when everyone just freezes up and doesn't know how to answer. So, AI, come on, stop flattering me. Tell me something bad about myself.
How much time do we have?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Hey, I learned from my mistakes. That's all that matters, is I learned from my mistakes. So, all right, great. I think we'll
that's
come back.
what I mean, and that's what it really sounds like. To really get the most out of AI is you have to give it the feedback from, quote, the mistakes and things that it didn't put you in the right direction. So when we come back from the break, I think we'll dive maybe into a lot more other uses and practical applications. How can business owners, how can marketing departments, you name it, but how can you get the most out of it? Because I think it's just going to be kind of a fascinating topic. We can dive into a lot of examples. So,
yeah, I think a lot of people they understand the concept, but they also want to understand the how.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
Great. So we're listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3. We'll be right back.
This morning in the Atlanta airport, no one's missing a meal on Mac Wilburn's watch. With 11 restaurants to serve passengers, he's got dining for every destination. And it all started when Mac talked with First Horizon Bank about opening a franchise in the airport. Now it's open for business and cleared for takeoff. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Mac. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
Support for Extra 106.3 comes from Natural Body Spa and Skin Remedy, celebrating their 35th anniversary and offering gift cards in-store and online. You can discover Mother's Day and anniversary presents online at Natural Body Spa and Skin Remedy at naturalbody.com.
Now back to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3 FM.
Welcome back to the Marketing Madmen. Trip Job and Nick Constantino here live from the Battery, and we are talking to Fank Lazzaro, an AI expert and VP of Marketing at Piedmont Bank. And we were talking about a few examples of where AI has really helped, and I think some of the context. But let's dive in a little bit more to some other areas that marketers or business owners could benefit.
Yeah, I think we got to be top line here, because one of the things that I've learned, digital marketing is still new to some people, and a lot more people than I think it is. I was with someone yesterday. We were talking about how CRM systems speak to marketing systems, speak to how everything communicates, and that itself is pretty relatively new. So I think the question is for people who are brand new to this and just learning digital marketing, where does AI come in?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that, if we expand on that a little bit too, we're getting to the point to where most companies don't get really big marketing departments. So if you're a really big organization, you can have experts in each of those buckets. But if you're a smaller marketing department, you're wearing multiple hats. Like you said, they may not know digital enough because they've come from more of a traditional offline marketing perspective. So when you think about where AI can really, really help is around augmenting your capabilities. So if you're really not smart or up to speed on kind of where, say, paid search is or digital marketing, you could use the AI to educate yourself.
Yeah.
You could use AI to kind of help you figure those things out.
And in this instance, there's a billion inputs. There are articles upon articles upon articles upon articles. So your input set is already built. And articles about home improvement industry, all these different industries too. So you have specialized information that it's just summating it for you. It's just giving you the...
So a real world example of that is that I could go to the AI and I can feed it, here's everything about my company, everything about my products, everything about my services. Here are all of my competitors, and I'm feeding all this information to the AI. Now help me create a bunch of keywords that I could use for a paid search campaign. I don't know how to build a paid search campaign, but it's going to basically do it for it. And then I can come back and say, okay, my budget is $5,000 per month. How would I allocate that over 3 months?
And it could probably go and look at your biggest competitor in another market, pull their keywords, and use said keywords back there. I mean, it's that it's all public domain.
Absolutely, and if it's out on the internet, it's going to use it.
Now that brings up a
Now,
great
what you
question.
don't know is if your competitors are doing it well or not.
But that brings up a good question. So where does intellectual property come into all of this? And one of the things that I've heard about the negatives is like when you say build a painting in the style of Monet, right? You are still scouring somebody else's intellectual property to build something. What do you what effect does that have on all this? Because really, if you're just stealing the competitor's keywords, what do they own? What do they not? Are you even having those conversations?
Well, there's been tools out there before that you could buy, like SpyFu and all these other ones that you can do all that research today on who's buying what. So most of that's kind of in the public domain. When you think about proprietary information is, am I using something that you have built and copyrighted or some kind of marketing process? Yeah, maybe, but I don't think that's likely. I think for most marketers, the intellectual property and the proprietary stuff is
if they're all doing it, they're all doing it.
They're already doing it. There are already research tools out there. There've been research tools out there forever.
Essentially.
Yeah. So they've been out there. So the AI is just making it easier, right? So you're not having to learn the tool. You're just asking the AI to do it for you.
So what about, and I say this with marketing a lot, and I think digital marketing, because it is always trying to capture bottom of the funnel, it commoditizes people, right? Because now all of a sudden everyone's playing the same game and competing in the same space. And what happens is if you're competing in the same space, you're competing on price or you're competing on who spends more money. So what advice do you have to, again, this is a tool. Like for us, that's when we talk about branding. Like, look, if your name is known before somebody uses these tools, they are more likely to interact, which is why a good, well-built radio campaign, not just commercials, is built for it. So where does that come in where you don't want to just make this a commodity, and if everyone's playing the same game, it commoditizes it?
Yeah, so it's an awesome research tool, awesome research assistant. You could easily go in and start building, ideal customer profiles off of some basic data, where instead of just building 2, you could build 6. And then you can really start getting to that concept of when marketers love the concept of one-to-one marketing or personalized marketing. So if I can hone down my customer base and then instead of creating a broad-based campaign where I'm trying to target, males between 18 and 55, which is a really big segment, I can break it up. 18 to 26 and then 27 to 30. Yeah. So, but I can have very unique individual profiles and then from a digital perspective, load it up into the tool and then segment, get my ads where they need to be. Instead of wasting all that time trying to figure that out, using the AI to augment that. And I've used it before to build ICPs for people where we're targeting architects or we're targeting accountants or we're targeting somebody, but it's like, give me the demographics, tell me, and it'll pull census data, it'll pull all information, it'll pull everything about business data, and it's amazing. Then I can easily go in and say, okay, now tell me how they buy.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, because now you're talking sociology.
And we get into another. I mean, we use a tool today, Humanic AI, that looks at your LinkedIn profile and gives you a DISC assessment of the individuals you're talking to, as long as they have a thorough enough profile. It reads how they write, it reads, their roles, what they post, all those type of things, and gives you a sense of how to communicate with them, how to reach out to them.
I think it would be cool to actually go the reverse way and say, look at all these clients, what demographics are they missing? Because that's a way to go, and you want to be in places where people aren't so saturated. Who are they not advertising to? What keywords are they missing out on? Because that gives you, and again, I think you're right, the more sophisticated you are, the more you're going to be able to succeed using said tools, and that's why it's going to be not commoditized, because people are going to always be better than other people. People are always better marketer, radio, TV, ads. I mean, there are ads that stand out as being the best and ads that stand out as being the worst for a reason. I think it is good to be competitive. So let's take it back a step and let's talk the home improvement industry, okay? So give some specific examples. Let's talk about content, because right now, content is king. SEO, you need video on your website. Talk about how you could use AI for video to help these people do a daunting task. Like for us, we've had this camera running. This will break down to short form video. It's not about the podcast. It's about the content that it's making us create and how we repurpose and use said content. So give some advice to like a home improvement company, maybe an $8 million company that knows they have to get into that content creation realm, but isn't quite there yet. How do you use some of these tools to get yourself into that space?
Some of the things that I've done before, and I think it's helpful, get it to write video scripts for you. Say, here's my product, here's my target customer, this is what I'm trying to do, here's the format. It's going to be a 30-second radio spot. Write me a script. Someone who doesn't do that on a day-to-day basis, writing radio scripts is tough.
Yeah.
Right.
And the shorter it is, we were talking about this earlier, the harder it becomes.
60 seconds is pretty easy. 15
Absolutely.
30
easy.
and 15 are really tough.
I can write a 2-minute, 3-minute video script like no one's business, right? But condense that down to a 15-second spot. And how do you convey your message? So that's the beautiful part about when you're working with the AI. If you give it those constraints, I'm creating a 15-second video spot or radio spot. I need a script. And it's amazing. It'll come back in the format, and like if you're doing a video, it'll give you suggestions on what your title screen should be and the transition and all this other stuff. So you could take someone who doesn't have that capability, doesn't have the resources necessarily to go out and hire an agency to do this all the time. They could easily start generating concepts and ideas for video and radio scripts immediately.
Yeah.
Now, some of the new technology that's coming out, particularly with the Google Gemini, they're doing actually text to video. So you type what you want, and then it's generating a video for you. Now, think about that as a marketer, right? I come in, hey, listen, I got a guy walking down the street. He's looking at his to-do list, and he needs to walk into a window replacement store and all this other stuff. And next thing you know, there's a video.
That person talking directly to the person walking in.
Right.
It's crazy.
Right. And then create the script that sits on top of it. I need some opening, like I need happy, go lucky, summertime springy music. And it's going to do that. So it's kind of weird. It doesn't do a super great job right now, but you can see the capability that it's only been out for a couple months. What is it going to look like in 6 months from now? 12 months from now, to where I think you're going to see companies like a Canva or something like that says, hey, we have this text to video AI capability. You tell us what you want, we create the video, and boom, next thing you know, you have all these short form videos.
Yeah, I think it's great. And I think one thing as advice, like your plan should be not to do it once. It's to do it every day or every week. Because one of the things I know when we started doing the show is like, you got to do 100. You have to do something 100 times before you're ever going to be good at it. So don't write one script and then be so daunted that you never do it again. You're going to get better at it. All these things become more natural the more you do it. And once you get really good at it, move on to something else, because the technology is moving so quickly.
So I create 40 social media posts every month. So I post twice a day on LinkedIn, most part. And it's usually some topic around AI. Now, that would take me forever, like an all-day Saturday morning and then even into Sunday. With AI, I can reduce that down to basically a Saturday or Sunday morning, an hour or so, produce 40 social media posts, hashtags, themes, all this other stuff, bring it into Microsoft Word, kind of clean it up, edit it. I use a version of Hootsuite, but it's like a cheaper individual version. But it's like I just schedule it out for the next 60 days, next 30 days,
and I don't real-time analytics. Then now all of a sudden you're bringing AI in on the back end and saying, hey, this is what worked really well. So in theory, it could start adjusting the posts you're writing based on what's worked for your audience also.
Oh, absolutely. And then everything that I've written, I always give it back to it, and so it knows the topics that I've already talked about. and the things that I talk about and how I write and my tone and my voice.
Yeah.
And it just helps simplify what I do on a day-to-day basis. And I was like, man, that, I free up my Saturday morning. I can do a whole month of social media before I finish a cup of coffee.
One of the things I found, and this brings in SEO, is the internet, SEO, all these things, they don't like whimsy. So we write, because I love writing our titles of these episodes. Like I'm just trying to be bring in the weirdest stuff, and I'm trying to be whimsical, right? And then I get my summations, and it's like, this is awful. Like, what are you talking about? That's what your summation. Now, in this case, I ignore AI because the whimsy is fun for me. Right. But it seems to not like clutter and fluttery things. It likes to be very matter of fact, and it says that the SEO likes to be matter of fact, which makes sense because everyone interprets whimsy different ways as opposed to matter of factness. So that's one thing I would say is, the creative part is always going to be stripped away. The more digital things get, the more creativity kind of vanishes. There's a reason for that, and because when you're talking SEO, Google wants concrete. What are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to say? It doesn't want fluttery.
So I would agree, and also too, when you start thinking about how AI writes, it is very flowery in a lot of ways. Now, I will caution marketers when it comes to this is that at some point these search engines are going to recognize AI content, and they're going to prioritize the human created content over the AI created content. Yeah,
until there's AI to find a way around that. I mean, it's going to be a one-up-a-thon.
There's always this constant battle, right? You're always going to have to. You see the universities and colleges fighting this, like we need these AI detectors. But what you're finding is now there's new software out there that could take AI-generated content and actually de-AI.
Humanize it. And humanize it.
Yeah. So it's fascinating. So I think it's a double-edged sword. I think marketers have to be careful that over-reliance on AI is not necessarily a good thing. I think it could be
one of your tools.
Yes.
But let's say something fair, okay? There's more information at people's fingertips now than there has ever been, and I feel like people are dumber now than they've ever been. So it's not exactly that the tools are the easy, it's your aptitude for the tools or your desire to learn. Like, we know everything in the world. You can figure out anything. You say you're not a good digital marketer, you could do 10 minutes a day on a course and figure out how to be a digital marketer. Know enough to be dangerous. How many people are doing it? How many people you interact with that are actually doing it? None. Yeah. So
I mean, honestly, if you look at where we are today, people have more access to education than in any time in history. You can go online. There's LinkedIn Learning.
And
there's
more
Udemy.
data being created now in one day than there were in tens of thousands of years before.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the old adage. Everyone right now is 10 miles wide and an inch deep. I mean, it's really.
But you have all that education, so like you could easily just go online and learn something. Where AI is going to come in, and I see this with my kids, right? When my son's not really into statistics, but he's using ChatGPT to kind of help him understand concepts. So now you're starting to see people use the AI just as a trainer, like help me educate myself. But it's a great thing. So as a marketer,
school doesn't teach context; they want you to memorize. If you learn tips and tricks to gain context, that is more beneficial than any memorization will ever be, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, I mean, as a marketer, if you don't understand a concept, you don't understand a marketing principle, digital marketing or out of home or whatever it may be, leaning into AI to help you learn those things and simplify concepts is a phenomenal tool to do that.
Yeah.
And it's an awesome research tool too. You go in and say, hey, I need to learn more about this. Help me. Dumb it down. I have no knowledge of this. Dumb it down for me.
You bring up a point. I'm curious about textbooks and the way history is written. History tends to be written in the eyes of the country it's written in, and by the people who have power. So you listen to the history books pre-America, they're very different, right? I was amazed. I went to Seoul, Korea, and it was more American than Flushing, Queens, where I was born. Flushing, Queens is more Korean than Korea is because of after the war and America's influence, blah, blah. So are you just perpetuating old stereotypes by it deciphering code that was really written into someone's favor? Are they worried about that?
No, I don't think that is, because go back to the concept of the learning model, the language model, right? So I think it's starting off with base content, but as it's fed more content over time, it's the concept is that it evolves.
So it's like Wikipedia almost, because Wikipedia, anyone could go in and enter. It's fact checked, but it's not just one person's interpretation. People could go in and manually put stuff in, and that tells the story.
So from an AI perspective, the data is not static, right? Every time someone uses it, every time it creates something, its brain, so to speak, continues to grow. And then it's not necessarily just picking one item. It's taking everything and kind of blending it into trying to understand the contextual idea of why we should be responding in a certain way.
That's scary. When you thought when you start bringing in these machines are learning context, because that's where I get worried. And I'm not worried, I don't think there's a dystopian world. I'm not worried about any of that stuff. What I'm worried about is over reliance, and what I'm worried about is when you start bringing in government officials and they're using AI to write policies and they know the nuclear codes, and you start getting into that kind of stuff. It just it dehumanizes us. It takes the context out of it and gives it in a machine who can be manipulated no matter how you do it. That's what worries me.
I was speaking at a conference in Portland last month, and one of the attendees came up to me afterwards, and I ended up becoming really good friends with her, and we have really great conversations. She asked me a stunning question. She's like, as a marketer and a writer, I feel like I'm so creative. Is AI going to actually eliminate creativity? Is it just going to make us less creative because of the over-reliance?
I think if you know how to use the tools creatively, the answer is no, right?
That was my answer as well.
We know how to use these, because creativity is not static to a type of thing. No. If you're a creative artist, you're probably a creative songwriter, and you're probably, that creativity is not static to one form of thing. And I think one thing I think about marketing as a whole, and the biggest thing right now in marketing is the intersection of art and science. Is what is the blend? How much art is in it? Because one thing AI, one thing that data, one thing that digital does not do is elicit emotional response. We have still not figured out a way to use these tools to. And what is marketing? You are trying to elicit an emotional response to make someone buy something in which they don't need. At its core, and I'm simplifying it, that's what marketing is. So I agree, and I think that that's a good question, but I think a lot of people who think they're creative might not be as creative as they are, and I think a lot of people who think they're not creative are probably more creative than they think they are.
Yeah, I agree. So my response back to her was pretty simple. I'm like, creative people are always going to be creative.
Yeah.
I said, what it is going to do is going to take someone who's not creative and allow them to kind of perform a little bit better. But they're never going to exceed the person that's creative, because if you take that creative person and then give them a tool like AI, it's just going to amplify their capabilities.
They have a different lens.
Yes.
I mean, creative people have a different view, whatever it is. It could be verbal, it could be visual, whatever. But they think different. They have a different view of the world, and that makes them more creative in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And to your point, it may sharpen it, but it's not going to change them, or it's not going to give me completely their lens of the world.
So it's interesting. So once a semester, I have a friend of mine that teaches at SCAD here in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And he has me come in because they're also teaching them business classes, because if you're going to be creative, you also have to understand the business side of things. I come in and I talk about AI all the time. And their big concern is, I'm making all this investment in my education to be an artist, creative. Is AI going to take my job? And the reality is I tell them all the time, I'm like, no, that it's not going to take your job. But you need to learn these tools to make you a better artist, right? You have to be able to augment your capabilities, because the artist sitting next to you is going to learn it, and they're going to be more efficient. They're going to create concepts faster. They're going to be able to deliver messages to their clients faster. They're going to do all these things faster and better than you because of AI.
And to be fair, it might devalue it to an extent. Like, I'm pretty sure autocorrect devalued an English major. I mean, I'm pretty sure that happened because a lot of those things that you're doing are being automatic. It might devalue, not for the good people, but it might devalue it a little bit. You never know. It's possible.
If you're a book editor, I'd be concerned.
Yeah.
Right, because the last book I wrote, because I hired an editor for my first book, and then the second book that I wrote, when I completely self-published, I used ChatGPT as my editor. I'd feed it chapters of my book saying...
You don't get more black and white than a book editor.
No.
There's no room, there's no gray at all.
No gray at all. So ChatGPT would read I'd feed it individual chapters, and I would say, I need you to proofread this and make sure there's clarity and it's concise, and it would go through and give me suggestions on how to fix each of the chapters. And I'm like, well... I'm thinking about how much I spent on the editor on the first book, and I'm like, well, look how much I just saved.
Where's my rebate?
There's the rebate. So I think there's certain roles, I think, within the marketing.
In any time, any industry changes, we're in the middle of probably the fourth revolution now. The digital revolution is now happening with this. Yeah. It's going to change every time, anytime. Yeah. People don't go to school for farming anymore. But you know what? That being said, people didn't, when college brought about, people didn't go to school for trades. You know what people are starting to do now? Not go to college and go to trades, because plumbers are making more money than people with 3 master's degrees.
And if you ever have a plumber show up at your house, immediately right off the bat you realize how much the bill is. I'm like, what the heck is going on here?
Every time before they even come, they don't even fix anything. Yeah. I once had a plumber come to my house. I did 80% of the work. They came and billed me more because it broke off their how they do things. I was like, dude, all I had to do was fix the part I couldn't fix. So I want to end with this. We have 3 minutes in this thing, then I want to talk about the future. Let's do 60 seconds each on, based on what we're talking about, some tips. So my tip is very simple. Whatever you're going to do, plan on doing it enough times to be good at it, know enough to be dangerous, And the world is about content right now. It is not about how you're going to purpose the content. It's about being comfortable making content, and making content not necessarily to make it, but that you think other people will engage with and find practicality in. Don't worry about the AI yet. The AI is going to help you stream, but unless you can get really good at making content that other people genuinely want to consume, everything else is moot. So that would be my advice. What do you got?
So we did at our company, our CEO basically said, hey, we're going to look at a number of different areas. Okay. I mean, everything from our research staff to our marketing team to our sales team to operations. And, we looked and evaluated a number of different tools. We invested in a couple of them. And, the key is now we're trying to use them. All right. We're not 100%, flipping everything over, but we're utilizing the tools. We're all getting more experience doing it. We're experimenting. We're not changing everything. I mean, our marketing team is content heavy. They've looked at a few tools. They're experimenting with how that can be utilized. It's not changing the number of people we have. But I think you have to keep putting your toe in the water. You keep trying things, keep learning, and it's not an all or nothing. You've got to work your way in. And I think that's the thing, and it does need to start at the top.
No.
Greg, what you got, bud?
I think for me, you can't ignore this. I think people are very fearful of new technology, new things. You need to embrace it. You need to figure out how it's going to incorporate into what you do. And once you realize that, there's a lot of benefits to that, particularly for smaller marketing departments. I think you go back, Harvard Business School did this study, and they said when we split the groups up, 50% were using AI, 50% weren't using AI. They saw that 47% increase in productivity with the people that were using AI for basic tasks.
And then not only that, it would get more productive. And that said, the longer the time goes, the more productive you get because the AI is self-learning. Yeah. So in theory, if you're training it to learn, you're going to go even faster.
So it's not only about creating marketing content and doing those things, but think about your administrative side, the things that you do on a day-to-day basis that allows you to get your job to function properly. If you can spend less time on the, say, administrative, you can spend more side on the creative side. So I think you can't ignore it. It's coming. It's going to be in everything, and it's going to be everywhere. You just need to kind of figure out how it works within your process, within your department, et cetera.
Love it.
No, I think those are great points. And you can't put your head in the sand, right? And we've been through digital marketing, same thing. Oh, this is never going to happen. And the reality is
our owner, David Dickey, still thinks the internet's a fad.
Yeah.
He still thinks it's a fad. I'm like, hey, I don't know if this thing's really catching on yet.
And by the way, it's evolving so fast. You wait 3 months, you're 6 months behind. Oh. You wait a year, you're
right.
Almost 2 years.
And you
behind.
don't have to learn it all at once. I think
Absolutely.
That's the key. So you're listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3. We will be right back.
In today's fast-paced world, your business deserves banking solutions that are as dynamic and cost-effective as you are. Solutions like free business checking from LGE Community Credit Union, free online and mobile banking, no minimum balance required, plus no maintenance fees and dividends on your balance. At LGE, we're a smarter way to bank. See what's possible for your business at lgeccu.org. No monthly maintenance fees. Other service fees such as NSF, overdraft, wire, and stop payment fees still apply. Not all businesses will qualify. Membership eligibility and base savings account that keeps a $5 minimum balance required.
Support for Extra 106.3 comes from Natural Body Spa and Skin Remedy, celebrating their 35th anniversary and offering gift cards in-store and online. You can discover Mother's Day and anniversary presents online at Natural Body Spa and Skin Remedy at naturalbody.com.
Now back to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3 FM.
Welcome back to the Marketing Madmen. Nick Constantino and Trip Joe finishing up our conversation with AI with Fank Lazzaro, and let's talk future. So I'm going to start with dystopian, and then I want to end with utopian to end on a positive note. Before we do that, I just want to say one quick thing. My grandmother is 98 years old. Found out yesterday that she had broken her hip. She fell over, was in the hospital, was down on herself, was complaining. So before everyone, young people, complain about how hard their life is, my grandmother got surgery on her hip, is walking out of the hospital the same day at 98 years old, able to get up and go to the bathroom by herself after breaking her hip. So congrats to my nana. I love you. It's crazy. And to all the young people out there, stop freaking complaining. Your problems aren't that bad. Now, let's talk dystopian.
So you want to stand off your soapbox real quick?
So it's my nana's soapbox, who immigrated here from Italy.
Did she fall off the soapbox?
Yeah, that might have been it. She tripped over the soapbox, actually. So let's do dystopian. So I always get nervous. I'm not a anti-corporate America. I'm a libertarian probably at its core, but corporate America has a tendency to use these things towards their own advantage. And let's be clear, their own advantage is to make more money. So I'll give you an example. even if you're new to how Facebook works, there's an option to have the ads auto-optimize, okay? Now, I've done auto-optimize. Auto-optimize means it's spending more money to give more money to Facebook. Yeah. It's not optimizing anything. It's not A/B testing. Yeah. It is putting money where the highest CPMs are to pretend to give you benefit, but really it's just padding their own pockets. I have to imagine that there are companies out there that are strictly looking at this as, how do I exploit some people? How do I make money? So what protocols are being put in place? And what do you tell the people that are looking at that dystopian view? What is being done to help prevent those things from happening? And is there anything being done?
Yeah, it's interesting. Regardless of the industry, they think about it the same way. You think about the architecture, engineering, construction industry. They think using AI is going to allow them to reduce overhead. I can get rid of people and do the same amount. Same thing in most organizations. They're thinking that it's all this cost savings piece. So the reality is, when you think about that, that's not necessarily the case.
Right, especially up front.
Up front.
It probably costs way more up front because the demand curve is driven up through the roof. You have people that even know what they're doing.
Absolutely, and you're still going to need people to run these things. They're not autonomous. They're not going to be doing this stuff by themselves. So you really do need marketers, and you do need people to kind of manage this thing. Because at the end of the day, when it produces content, it still needs to be reviewed. There needs to be that human touch before it goes out. I think businesses are looking at it, and some businesses are looking at it differently. They're looking at this as a cost savings versus looking at a way as it's an efficiency play.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's good
you
to
may
know.
not be able to slash your marketing department, but you may not have to add that other 2 people next year if you incorporate AI the right way. Your department doesn't shrink. And so it's getting businesses not to think about it as, I can use this to slash that. It's more along the lines of, how do we get more efficient so that we grow more effectively or more, more strategically versus just keep adding.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Look, the stock market is a forward-looking indicator. So the stock market has already priced in most of this boom. So once it becomes plateaus and becomes kind of normalized, then I agree. But I'm more worried about the future when we all of a sudden realize these
danger, Will Robinson.
Again, it's not machines, it's not that stuff. I just worry that when you have enough people with enough money, they can use these tools for the wrong reasons, and we might not even know they're being used for the wrong reasons because we're so distracted by the shininess of it, if you will.
I mean, it's kind of scary when you think about some of the what Google does with the voice, where they could take 15 seconds of your voice and basically just mimic it to a whole conversation. Or the AI capability of generating...
Google can't say the words that I say, so I'm cool. Google's not allowed to say the things that I say,
That's
so
awesome.
I'll be cool. Everyone just start cursing more. This way Google can't say those things.
So you think about that, at some point, where does, biometrics, like taking a scan of my face to get on an airplane, which they're using to digital ID...
Terrifying. Thumbprint's a lot easier to fake with AI.
Right. So it's at some point, when does it get to the point to where now we have to do something different? Or are there bad actors that come into to kind of play into this? Now, could you use AI to start we see it deep fakes all the time. Most of them are pretty funny, but some of it is you can't tell. You really can't tell that something's happening. So I think there's nefarious capabilities built into this.
Again, with anything. The internet
exactly. And I think with any technology, you have people who become early adopters and early movers. And they may not be the best, but part of their reason they're jumping in early is because they see an opportunity to grab a share of the pie.
And to be fair, people in Japan have had virtual girlfriends now for 10 years. So it's not that weird. So Tripp, let's bring us back to Utopian before I just destroy this whole conversation. Bring us back. I'm not kidding about that, by the way. They are literally holograms, some of them, but they get so lonely that they have virtual girlfriends that learn in AI and speak to them. I'm not kidding about this.
But on the dystopian thing real quick, though, too, I think the industrial...
Just take me away from it.
Where are you spending your time?
I know.
Yeah.
What dark web are you on?
You knew right away. He agreed with me. He said 10 years also. Go ahead.
So go to touch back on the dystopian before we get back to Tripp on this. Is I think the industrial nations, they'll put safeguards in place. I'm more concerned about the countries that don't have those gates that prevent people to do this. So you think of Russia, you think of North Korea, you think of Iran, that are already doing stuff from a cybersecurity perspective.
If you have nothing to lose, it's easier. For example, El Salvador going almost all completely over to crypto. If it wins, El Salvador can become one of the most wealthy countries there is. If it loses, they can be completely bankrupt. But if you're so low, you have nowhere to go but up.
Yeah, so I'm not worried about the industrial. I think they'll put the safeguards in place. keep those companies in check. I'm more concerned about more of the foreign actors that don't have those safeguards or don't care about the safeguards. But
all right,
now we can jump on Utopia.
Utopia.
We've hit a lot of it. I think it is, again, how can you be more efficient? How can you, you gave an example earlier, Nick, that, hey, you do video, there's a lot of ways to create more content than we're creating today. I mean, you're already doing it. You're doing the long form. And this efficiency can allow you and your teams, your marketing teams, to have 50 short form videos available, where before that might have been a month-long project, right? And so I think figuring out ways, and with that mindset of efficiency and making us better, I think that's the real opportunity out there. So.
Yeah, for me, I look at it as it's one of those things to where you could do more with less. Yeah. Not everyone's a Coca-Cola or Home Depot that has large marketing departments. Yeah. There are 2 marketers at the Piedmont Bank. We're 250 people on the top end. We don't have a lot of how do I do more as a marketing leader to do a bunch of stuff that I don't have the bodies to put on. I don't have a social media person and an email person and
you're talking about establishing best
generalist again, which I grew up as a marketing generalist, right. And I think
but you also have to establish best practices, because it has to be something that can continue to be done
and safeguards
and do all the work now, and then it goes down. You got to build best practices also.
Right. So I think where it's really going to benefit, and this is honestly the vast majority of the businesses in this country, are those small businesses, where they can act and do things like a larger marketing department within a budget that's manageable to their revenue. Right. So if you're generating $500,000, $1 million a year in revenue, you don't have a 4, 5, 10 person marketing department. You probably have one person.
And here's the other one: the freelancers. So we have moved to a gig economy, and if you're a freelance marketer, the ability to do more for your clients, maybe areas that weren't your strength.
Yeah, you're juggling multiple projects now because AI is doing a lot of that stuff in the background. The only problem with that, and I'm going to just speak on behalf of a lot of people, are charging you for hours that take seconds because of AI, and it's going to have a real big impact. I'm telling you, just even shipping jobs. My brother's agency, he runs social media for Kaiser Permanente. They are shipping so much money overseas and billing the clients hours for America. When advertisers, especially when they get budget tight, get hip to these things, that's going to have a dramatic impact on the industry.
We could have a whole other subject on that, because things been offshored and other things for here, and it should be about value. You really should not get in certain areas, but that's a whole other topic.
Hey, by the way,
you're pulling the wool over someone's eyes, and you're saying that something took hours, that took minutes, and then when they get hip to it, they're going to be really pissed off, and it's going to affect the industry.
But at the end of the day, if you're an attorney and all you do is review contracts, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Because I get a contract and I want to understand what's wrong with it or where the caveats are. I'll just give it to AI and say, what do I need to be aware of in this
contract? The only counter I have to that is that somehow contracts are still getting longer. If that was the case, then my contract should be 3 pages, not 6,600 pages that I sign off on blindly, because who's going to read it?
This is fantastic. No, it's fantastic. Frank Lazzaro, AI expert, thanks for joining us. You've been listening to the Marketing Mad Men on Extra 106.3.
In today's fast-paced world, your business deserves banking solutions that are as dynamic and cost-effective as you are. Solutions like free business checking from LGE Community Credit Union, free online and mobile banking, no minimum balance required, plus no maintenance fees and dividends on your balance. At LGE, we're a smarter way to bank. See what's possible for your business at lgeccu.org. No monthly maintenance fees. Other service fees such as NSF, overdraft, wire, and stop payment fees still apply. Not all businesses will qualify. Membership eligibility and base savings account that keeps a $5 minimum balance required.
Support for Extra 106.3 comes from Natural Body Spa and Skin Remedy, celebrating their 35th anniversary and offering gift cards in-store and online. You can discover Mother's Day and anniversary presents online at Natural Body Spa and Skin Remedy at naturalbody.com.
So, Robert, I want to thank you for your time. I just don't think you're the right person for this position.
I don't understand. Was it something I said?
Well, we did a background check on you and found some things of concern.
If you're in charge of hiring for your company, you know how helpful a background screening can be. That's why companies that use Horizon background screening make smarter hiring decisions. Don't let the wrong hire put your company at risk. Get the real story on your candidates at horizonscreening.com. horizonscreening.com.